I think we call women people pleasers way too quick. You do too much for everybody. People pleaser. You have a hard time putting yourself. People pleaser. Everybody comes to you when something goes wrong. People pleaser. And every time I hear that, I'm like, I don't think so. Because y'all watching this will tell somebody you know in a heartbeat. And I know you don't need everybody to like you. You're not afraid to speak your mind. You're not walking around trying to keep everybody happy. But let something happen in your family. Somebody needs something figured out. There's a problem at work. One of your friends calls because their life is falling apart again. And somehow you're in charge. You didn't apply for that position. Nobody remembers officially giving you that position. But apparently, you're the director of making sure everybody is okay. And baby, the benefits are horrible. No PTO, no lunch break. Everybody has your personal number. And somehow you're always on call. So, no, I don't think the question for every woman is, why am I such a people pleaser? I think some of us need to ask a different question. Why do I feel responsible for everyone? Because those aren't necessarily the same thing. And if you've been wondering why you feel responsible for everyone, even when you're already tired, even when you know logically that everything isn't yours to handle, I think there's a belief underneath of that responsibility that you probably didn't notice. And that's what we're getting into today. I'm Keisha Golder, and I help women become the person they were created to be so they can create the lives that actually reflect who they are. And we're continuing our Life Purpose Makeover series, Why You're Putting Yourself Last. In the last episode, we talked about why everyone expects so much from you. And we had to acknowledge something that wasn't necessarily comfortable. Sometimes people expect so much from us because we've consistently showed them that they can. But after that conversation, there's another question. Because, okay, everybody expects, but why do I feel responsible for giving to them? Why do I feel responsible for everyone's problems, everyone needs, making sure everything gets handled? That's what I want to talk about today because we're getting into your belief system, not just what you do, what you believe doing it is saying about you. I was thinking about how many of us were actually raised for this. Think about it. Being responsible was a good thing. Being dependable was a good thing. Being mature was a good thing. People being able to count on you, good thing. Somebody saying, oh, let's call Keisha. She don't know what to do. That feels good, right? Until one day you're sitting there thinking, wait. Why the hell does everybody keep calling me? Well, ma'am, we might have to look at our participation in this. And I say our because I'm not sitting over here pretending like I don't know anything about this. I know exactly what it feels like sitting the person thinking ahead, figuring things out, trying to make sure everybody has what they need. And sometimes before anybody even asks, that's the sneaky part. Because sometimes we're frustrated that everybody depends on us while simultaneously making sure nobody ever has to figure anything out without us. And see, that's a conversation, right? Because if everybody around you knows that eventually you're going to step in, why would they develop the same urgency that you had? And before somebody gets mad at me, because I know some of you might, and I'm okay with it. I'm not saying people don't take advantage. They absolutely can. I'm not saying that there are people who will let you carry every damn thing if you let them. There are. I'm saying both things can be true. They may have gotten comfortable expecting it, and you may have gotten comfortable being the person who handles it. And if you're trying to understand why you feel responsible for everyone, we can't only look at what everybody else is doing. We have to be willing to look at our part too, not to blame ourselves, to understand ourselves, because that's where we get some choices back. I already know, and I can hear somebody saying it right now. But Keisha, if I don't do it, it won't get done. And I know that. That's what makes this hard because sometimes it really won't. And here's where I'm probably going to get on your nerves. So, no, seriously, what happens if it doesn't? Because I think some of us have gotten so used to preventing anything from going wrong that we don't even stop to ask, what would happen if we did? Maybe somebody forgets. Maybe somebody gets inconvenienced. Maybe they're late. Maybe they have to figure it out. Maybe they get mad. Maybe they experience the consequences of not handling their business. Now, obviously, I'm not talking about something where somebody is going to be harmed. We're using discernment here. I'm talking about all of the everyday things where your brain goes, somebody needs to handle this. And somehow you jump immediately from somebody needs to handle this too. I guess I'm somebody. Whoa, hold on. Let's slow down because we skipped a few steps. Why you? That's not rhetorical. I need the answer. Why does the fact that something needs to happen automatically create an assignment for you? And I think most of us will answer, well, because I can do it. Exactly. You can. But that's where being capable can get you in trouble because you keep asking, can I handle this? Girl, we know you can handle it. That's half the damn problem. The question needs to become, is this actually mine? And those two are very different questions. Here's what got me thinking. I don't think most of us walk around consciously saying, a good woman sacrifices herself, right? You probably wouldn't say that. If I asked you whether women should put themselves last at all, you'd probably say no. If I asked whether mothers deserve lives outside of motherhood, absolute. Should women have boundaries? You'd probably say yes again. And should adults be responsible for themselves? You're going to tell me, girl, yeah. Okay. So intellectually, we know all of this, right? But I don't want to know only what you say you believe. I want to know something else. Why do you feel guilty about not doing? Because that will tell me something about what you believe. Oh, and we can talk about boundaries all day. But what happens when your mother calls and you don't answer? What happens when your grown child has a problem and you know how you could fix it, but you don't? What happens if your friend needs something and you actually don't have the capacity? What happens when somebody is disappointed in you? What happens inside of you? Because if the first thing that shows up is, I want to know what that guilt is attached to. Maybe somewhere you learned a good woman shows up. Maybe a good mother sacrifices. Maybe strong women handle their Maybe nobody ever said those exact words to you. You just watched it. You watched the women around you take care of everybody. You watched them keep going. You watched everybody praise them for being strong, for being selfless, for never letting anybody down. And maybe you learned this is what good women do. That's a belief. And beliefs are funny because you can stop agreeing with them consciously and still organize your whole life around. So when you ask, why do I feel responsible for everyone? I don't only want you looking at how much people ask you. I want you looking at what happens inside when you don't give it. Because sometimes the belief isn't hiding in what we do. It's hiding in the guilt you feel when you don't. That's why I don't want you listening to what you say you believe. Watch what makes you feel guilty. That guilt may be showing you where an old belief is still running things. There's another part of this that we don't always like talking about. Being needed can feel oh so good. I said it. We talk about the burden of everybody depending on us. And it is a burden. But let's be honest. There's also something about knowing they need me. They trust me. I'm the person they call. I know how to fix. That can feel good too. Especially if you spent a long time seeing yourself as the capable one. So what happens when people start needing you less? That's an interesting question, isn't it? Because we say we want everybody to stop depending on us. But sometimes when they actually do, we don't know what to do with ourselves. You ever offer somebody help and they said, no, I got it. And you be like, oh, or watch somebody do something completely different than you would have done it and had to physically stop yourself from saying, just give it here. Because apparently they're doing it wrong. And by wrong, we mean not the way that we would do it. See, this is where we get to know ourselves. Maybe being needed has become a part of how you know you're valuable. Maybe responsibility has become a part of your identity. Maybe you don't consciously think people need me, therefore I matter. People need me, therefore I matter. But what happens when nobody needs anything from you? Can you just be? Can you let people handle their own lives without feeling like you should be doing something? I'm not asking because there's a right answer. I'm asking because the answer tells you something about yourself. And for some of us, this is part of why we feel responsible for everyone. Responsibility isn't only something we've been doing, it's a part of what we believe we are. This is where the whole conversation shifted for me because I realized we haven't been carrying responsibility. Some of us have been carrying a belief about the woman we were supposed to be. That's why putting something down can feel so uncomfortable. We're not just saying, I'm doing this. Somehow, underneath that, it can feel like you're saying, I'm not dependable. I'm not a good mom. I'm not there for my family. I'm selfish. I've changed. And maybe you have changed. But that's the point, isn't it? Maybe the version of you who automatically carried everything was doing exactly what she believed she was supposed to do. And now you're questioning whether you still want to live that way. That doesn't make the old you stupid. It doesn't make her weak. It doesn't mean she did everything wrong. She was operating from what she knew. You know the saying, when you know better, you do better. But you're allowed to know something different now. You're allowed to decide. Being a good woman doesn't require me to be responsible for everybody. That's different from becoming somebody who doesn't care. Because you can care deeply, you can show up, you can support people, be generous and dependable, and still recognize that your life belongs to you and mine belongs to me. Which brings me to something that might be even more controversial. I believe everybody has their own karma. And let me explain what I mean before somebody runs off with that sentence. Because I know y'all will. I'm not talking about you did something bad to me, so just wait. Karma's gonna get you. That's not how I'm using it. I'm talking about the experiences and lessons that belong to your life. You have a journey. I have mine. You have choices you need to make, consequences you're going to experience, things you're going to learn, things you're going to have to figure out about yourself. And so do I. And this has made me wonder, how often do we interfere with other people's karma and call it helping? Because if every time you made a decision and I save you, what happened? If every time you're uncomfortable, I remove the discomfort, what happened? And every time you don't handle something, I handle it for you, happen. What do you learn? When do you figure out what you're capable of? When do you experience enough discomfort to say, yeah, I'm not doing that again? Sometimes the consequence is the lesson. And baby, this is hard when you love somebody because sometimes you see that the train is coming from 3 states away. You know exactly where this is headed. And you're sitting there like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Please don't do that. And then they do it anyway. Now you're watching everything unfold exactly the way that you knew that it would. And everything in you wants to jump in and fix it. But maybe that isn't always your job. And I had to think about something else too. Am I helping because this person needs my help? Or because watching them struggle makes me uncomfortable? Because those aren't the same thing. Maybe I don't know how to sit with your discomfort. Maybe your pain makes me anxious. Maybe watching you make a mistake makes me uncomfortable. So I jump in. I fix it. I rescue you. And then I call that helping you. But part of that might actually be about me. See, that's one of those questions you don't answer too quickly. And if you tend to feel responsible for other people's problems, this is where I really want you to pay attention. Caring about somebody's problems and being responsible for solving their problems are not the same thing. Sometimes loving somebody means letting them have their own experience. That doesn't mean I don't care what happens to you. It means I love you enough to recognize that your journey belongs to you. And here's the thing, You cannot live somebody else's karma for them. But baby, you can absolutely exhaust yourself trying to. And things get different when we're talking about somebody close to you, especially your children. Because as a mother, there are things that you are absolutely responsible for, of course, right? But as your children get older and grow, the responsibilities change. And sometimes that transition is hard for us too, because there are things I could absolutely do for my son. I know how. I could step in. I probably could do it faster. And depending on what we're talking about, might even do it better. But if I keep doing everything that they're capable of learning to do, who am I helping? At some point, I have to trust that the lessons in his life belong to him. I can guide him. I can listen. I can say, maybe you might want to think about that again. But ultimately, there are experiences that I can't have for them. And that's true outside of parenting too. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop standing between somebody and the lesson that life is trying to teach them. That's uncomfortable because standing back can feel like doing nothing, especially when you're used to feeling responsible for everybody you love. But sometimes you're not doing nothing. You're trusting. You're trusting them. You're trusting yourself. And you're trusting that you don't have to control every outcome for everybody to be okay. I'm not about to tell you, okay, from now on, stop helping people. That's ridiculous. And it's not who you are. And I don't want you to become less loving, less compassionate, or less dependable. I want you becoming more intentional. So this week, I don't even want you to try to change anything. I want you to just notice. Notice something comes up. You feel that familiar, I'll handle it feeling. I want you to pause before the cake comes on, because apparently some of us keep one folded nearby at all times and ask, is this mine? That's it. Not, can I fix it? We know you can. Not, what would I do? Would I do this better? You probably would. Not, do they need help? Maybe. The question you're asking is this mine? And if it's not yours, that doesn't mean you can't help. It means you get to choose whether and how you help instead of automatically assuming responsibility. That's a completely different way of showing up. So, if you came into this conversation wondering, why do I feel responsible for everyone? I want you leaving with a slightly different question. What have I been believing I'm responsible for? Because that's where this gets interesting. Notice what you automatically pick up, but pay even closer attention to what you feel guilty about putting down. Because that guilt might tell you more about your belief system than anything that I could teach in a video. You might discover, wow, I really do believe a good mother means I should fix this. Or I really do believe family should always say yes to family. Or I've made being dependable such a part of who I am that I don't know what it looks like to let someone else carry something. That's awareness. And awareness gives you a choice. You get to decide what still fits the woman you're becoming. And if there's one thing I want you to remember from this conversation, it's this. Just because you can carry it doesn't mean it belongs to you. That's it. That's the work this week. Before you pick it up, ask yourself, is this mine? And I want to hear from you in the comments because I know we're going to have some opinions about this one, and I love it. Do you think sometimes helping can actually interfere with somebody else's lesson? Talk to me because I want to know what you think. And next time we're getting into strength, here's the plot twist. Some of the things that make you so damn good at carrying everything may be the reason everybody keeps handing you stuff. We're going to talk about that in the next video. I'll see you guys over there.